Welcome to Shop Talks. Good afternoon. I'm Rick Roth from the In Kitchen. You can check out inkitchen.com and our YouTube channel. And I want to thank our sponsors, Emerald, who put on this show and help with these Shop Talks, Hirsch, Stalls in Los Angeles Apparel. They make all this information free. I have with me Michelle Moxley, who puts out a video channel with In Kitchen called Fahrenheit A High, and is deep into screen printing, embroidery, all kinds of decoration, and deep into artificial intelligence. And we are lucky to have her here, and she's going to give a little talk about it right now.
So, hi. So yesterday we talked about how to get started in AI, and it was focused on art and marketing. And today we're going to do a bit deeper dive on how you can use AI and what the current state of AI is in the world. So if you're not familiar, artificial intelligence leverages computers to act like a human mind. It builds a neural network that creates connections so it can give back and regurgitate data to you in a format that you can understand and use in your businesses. So I'm going to be saying next to get to the next slide because our clicker doesn't work anymore. So there's three types of artificial intelligence. There's the kind that will assist us, the kind that will replace us, and the kind that will do things that we couldn't do without it. And it's important to be aware of that when you're interacting with AI, what kind of AI you're interacting with and what kind of AI you might be supporting. Next. So on the left, AI has started to look at fingerprint analysis unlike we've been able to in the past. So this is an AI that's doing something that we couldn't have done without it. In the past, fingerprint analysis was done against the same finger. So if you used an index finger print analysis against an index finger print, it would find a match even with a partial. With an AI, it can do a partial of any finger of that human against an index finger record. So it can actually infer what the other fingerprints might look like. And that would expand kind of, the police force and how they can convict crimes, but that hasn't passed through legal protections yet. But that is something that AI can already do. On the right, there is a product called a Lumi tool, and it's a laser engraver, and it's already incorporated with Midjourney. So you can generate images in Midjourney, it will posterize them, and then it will engrave them onto surfaces. Next. So what we're going to talk about today are how they achieve things like that, and it's through AI agents. AI agents are multimodal agents, and they're connected to a large language model like a ChatGPT OpenAI or a Google Gemini or a Llama. And then you add a memory to it, so your knowledge base, so some collection of what you want it to know specific to you. And then you can add all of these tools to it to make it interact with you. So you can make it talk, you can make it hear, you can make it see, you can make it do computations like programming, you can give it audio processing so it can actually hear things and then turn them into transcripts. So you're basically building an employee the way that you want. Next. So on episode 5 of Fahrenheit, we started the exploration of AI agents with the game of Clue. So in that game, there were these 4 agents. The expert on the left, he's an agent that was an expert in autogen. So autogen is a way to create these agents. And I will give you a better recommendation towards the end. But that agent would have been built with a large language model, ChatGPT, and then an expert in autogen, so data sources that teach it about autogen. So if I wanted to build an agent, I could ask that agent, and he would help me build himself once he was built. The next one is a researcher. So that one can do coding, and it can also look things up. That one takes a lot more computer processing. It takes a lot more, a bigger computer to be actively running, but it can search the internet for anything. It could go through scientific papers. It could help you build knowledge bases that you might feed to another agent. Chucky was a learning agent, so that one you could teach something to, and it would retain that information, it would learn it, and then it would continue to grow. That one is a little bit scary because that's the one that could replace us. As it learns, it gets better and better, and then it just takes our position. And then the last one was the butler in the story, and he's the user proxy, and he was the one that interacts with you, the human. So that would be like your Siri or your Alexa today, but in this case, it would be targeted towards your specific business, and it could be tailored so that you're using it with your expert, and it's specific to whatever data that you fed it. Next. So here's a really broad example. If we think about AI being in charge of the government, it's a bit scary. It's not humanity. It's disconnecting from humanity. And an AI president sounds kind of like Terminator. But if you think of it in terms of an AI agent as an assistant, as someone that has vast knowledge of data, has vast knowledge of things that we know our leaders don't necessarily have all in one human being, it's actually a value add because they can use these agents to understand parts of the demographic that they couldn't before. Next. But it can also be really terrifying. So this is a dictator from Indonesia that died in 2008, and this year they made an AI video of him promoting one of the new candidates that is up for election this year. And he died almost 10 years ago, but he talks and he indicates he looks like an AI. But if you consider that this happened already this year in Indonesia, and you consider our elections in November and how much this is going to advance, you have to be really careful about the information that's out there. The other thing that happened in the last 3 days is that the AI Act was passed in the EU. It hasn't, Biden passed what is it called when the president does it? Executive order, an AI executive order earlier this last year, but this is an AI EU Act, so this is coming into law. It places restrictions on use cases that pose high risk to people's fundamental rights, like healthcare, education, and policing. It also bans uses that are deemed to pose unacceptable risk, so subliminal, manipulative, or deceptive techniques to distort behavior and impair informed decision-making. It's hard to catch, though. There are some huge caveats. Law enforcement agencies are allowed to use sensitive biometric data as well as facial recognition software in public places to fight crime, and they can't read human emotion unless it's for medical or safety reasons. Tech companies are required to label deepfakes like this and AI-generated content and notify people when they're interacting with a chatbot or other AI system. So if you are going to get into AI today and use it on your website, you are going to want to label it and be really clear. It's not law yet in this country, but it will be. And then they have a office that they're setting up for citizens that can go to if they've been harmed by an AI. So they're starting that already. We don't have that yet in this country, but that will be in the EU. Next. But if you want to get started with these, now that we've gone through some of the scary aspects, the easiest place to get started is on OpenAI and ChatGPT. You go into their GPT library and you can create one. Basically, you're just giving it a knowledge set, and it's linking to OpenAI's large language model, and then it becomes a specific AI for you to use. There is one for our industry called Screenprint GPT that Matt Marcotte created that you can go play with. And then there's a bunch in there that you can just test and use. Like the first one that comes up there you can see is about hiking. And the knowledge set inside of GPT is somewhat limited, so you can put in things like PDF and text files and build it that way. But it's not going to give you the embedding site and things like that. Next. So the way we process search engines is shifting because of AI, and I don't know if you've noticed, but your Google may have changed, and it has an AI-generated preview that you can interact with. And I think it's important to interact with those because you'll start to see how natural language processing works. It's already being used in the medical field, so when doctors take notes on your charts, that's considered unstructured data, and that data has to be transcribed and then entered into a system. And the time frame from the note-taking through the transcription is quite long. With AI, it can be immediately transcribed through scanning and visual aids and giving those agents the ability to understand, or even text recording. And then that enables people to be immediately put into special studies or things that they may have had to be on a waiting list for. Because of the transcriptions of AI, they can be immediately found. Next. So this is an example of one that I created first. So this was AutoGen, and it was a bit of programming, but I'll show you one where it uses a UI next. So on the left, I used ChatGPT, and I built an AI agent personality that was a marketing agent. So he had this, or he or she or it had this experience, what it was capable of, what it was targeted about doing, what its strategies were, what its personality type was. And then I took that and I fed it into, at the time was AutoGen, which is programming, and it would create social media posts that were in its skill set using hashtags, links, call to actions about the Fahrenheit podcast. And it would do it on a calendar basis. So it created the LinkedIn post on the right. So this was an isolated AI agent that I built and programmed to do this action for me, so I wouldn't have to. Next. Now what I'm doing, the program is called Mind Studio, is building multiple agents so that they can interact with each other. So this one is an example of a blog agent where I took all of the transcripts of Fahrenheit AI and I fed them in as a data set, and then I built the personality of the agent and I gave it a style knowledge base so that it would learn to write like me. And now it writes blogs that sound exactly like me, and I can't tell the difference, even myself. If I go back and I rewrite parts of it, and then I look back at it, it's hard for me to determine which part I wrote and which part it wrote. And I'm tailoring it and optimizing it more and more so that I can't tell at all. Then what I can do is I have a blog agent, I have my social media posting agent, and I'm generating a database agent. So Rick and I are looking at using like the impressions database and building an agent that has all of the knowledge of impressions from its first issue. And that way, between those three agents, I can come up with social media that's relevant to a particular style of printing. Or you can access that database and ask it questions about how they used to do something in the past. Or you can see images from other printers that might be an inspiration to you. The goal of these agents is to have them working together so that you can create a workforce, an automated workforce of AI agents. Next.
So how long did it take you to do that, just so people get some idea of the, and when you say program, it's not...
I know, it's scary. And well, the other thing about AI that's cool is that it will help you program. So if you're not great at programming, you can use it and it'll do most of it for you. But I started doing AI agents in November of last year, and it was all coding. Some of the programs started coming out around then, and they were kind of unreliable. But then I would say in February of this year, they became more reliable. Mind Studio I really like because it connects with Zapier, it connects with all of the other apps that you're already using, so you can integrate it pretty easily, and it has access to multiple models. So that would be another way to look at it. If you want to build something that is working for your business, but it's with ChatGPT, for example, it's only going to use the OpenAI model. With a UI like Mind Studio, when they make partnerships, you can use different models. The advantage of that is, just like in the AI art-generated world, the different models do different things. So Midjourney does one style of art, Ideogram does a style of art, Stable Diffusion does a style of art. With the models, they have a style of knowledge that they understand. Some of them are more creative. ChatGPT tends to be very flourishy and a little bit exaggerating in its style. I use one called Claude that's very logical, but it doesn't have a huge amount of creativity. So you can see as you're building an agent that's maybe a knowledge base, how you might want to have a model that goes along with that. And if you're building one that is a marketing expert, you might want to have one that's more creative. So does that answer your question? It's all advancing very quickly. That's sort of the end, so if you guys have questions, and I'm hoping you do, yeah. I'm hearing about 80%. Yeah, I can hear about 80% of what you're saying.
Yeah, we're gonna give you the mic.
Yeah.
We're getting you a mic.
I'm like, I heard two agents talking to each other.
Hi, thanks for all of the great information. My name is Corey, and okay, so I was just saying that like a lot of times busy people, they're always saying if they could have a clone of themselves,
Yes.
they'd be able to get so much more stuff done,
Yes.
right? So I'm wondering what would be like the type of workflow to create an AI that has all of your knowledge. So if you had like an employee that needed to ask you something, it'll be able to give you that employee that information, or customers, or anyone else.
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's exactly what I'm doing. So, not to self-promote, but I'm a creative consultant that you can hire, and I've been hired by companies, so we do training seminars that maybe last 8 or 10 weeks, and we record them. So I do everything virtually, everything is recorded, and then transcript, and then built into an AI agent that they can access with questions. But it's built into a transcript out of a dialogue between myself and that client. So it's tailored towards them because it has at least 50% of their input and then 50% of my input that's elevating them to the next level. So walking away from the relationship, they can use the AI to continue the growth pattern, and then they can start to build on top of that whatever they want. So through the creative consultant, I'll teach them how to use the AI, interact with the AI, and then continue to build the AI out, if that answers your question. Because ultimately, my goal is the same thing, like how much information can I put into this so that I don't have to be the database.
So another example is working on the color separation thing, right?
Yeah, so I have been working on, and it kind of has taken a back seat because it takes a lot of time, but I have been working on one for color separation as well. So doing color separation inside of some versions of Photoshop, you can record I forgot the name of the file, but you can record. Well, no, it's not actually, but it'll make a code file, and then you can feed the code file into the agent, and it starts to understand separation. So I've been building a separation agent inside of ChatGPT actually, but I'm going to move it over to Mind Studio. So it would be a separation assistant, not a replacement. So as you're separating, if you get stuck or you don't understand how something functions, you can ask it, and it would help you go to the next step or the next level.
Or speed it up, things that you
Or
always
speed
do.
it, yeah, or speed it up.
Michelle, in regards to the agent, how long till your agent will teach my people how to create our own agent?
Well, so one thing I really like about Mind Studio, so you'll see if you watch the episodes, I kind of bounce around a lot because I'm trying to try out as many things as I can but not confuse the market. The one thing that you'll see, I really like Mind Studio so far. You can generate an agent, you go through and it's kind of like programming, but it's kind of like plug and play because it's all a UI. When you're done, it's functioning really well. You can name it, and then you can give it away or you can sell it. So it can be created into a generic agent. So like blog agent number 2 that knows me really well still has this functionality of going and looking for information and then reporting back to the user and then asking specific questions. So you can adopt that agent for yourself and just replace the database with your own database. So that way anybody can use it. And all of the agents through Mind Studio are that way if you make them accessible to other people. So we can build industry agents. Now the other advantage to what we're trying to do with Fahrenheit is that we have sponsors, Fruit of the Loom, M&R, and Stalls. And I've done one agent with Stalls playlist on YouTube where instead of you having to dig through 100 episodes, you could ask the agent, I need to know information about this, and it would say listen to this episode. If we can build those agents and then start having them integrated into this agent database, you will have vendor agents that can help you make decisions. So think of it like, I want to build a promo package for my embroidery machine, and I know it does left chest, and I have this excessive amount of these colors of threads, and you tell all of this to the AI agent. It's going to recommend a fabric for the loom. It's going to recommend, a number of stitches. It'll recommend the placement, the time of year, and then you have like this nice promo package that you could just send out to a customer that an AI generated based on your knowledge and your data set.
Sounds like it will work for remixing inks, actually. That would be a great one.
Yeah.
So you told it it's in your ink set and what you're trying to accomplish. It could start to tell you how you could make the inks that you want out of the inks you have.
That's actually
that would be
a really
a very
good idea.
sustainable idea.
Yeah, because one of the stupid things you can do with ChatGPT is if you didn't go grocery shopping and you get home, just tell it what you have and it'll make you a recipe. But it would be the same kind of thing, except you're building your knowledge base so it understands ink. Yeah. Rick is constantly like that. He calls me up and he says, hey, can we build this one? I have a list of like 80.
Other questions?
You mentioned Mind Studio and then you mentioned another program. Did you start off with one and build up into Mind Studio? How did that work out?
Yes. So in AI generated art, you have like basic programs. That is where the generation started. So like Midjourney, Stable Diffusion. It's the same in this field where you have the base models. So it's AutoGen, and that's where I started. And AutoGen is very good, and it's Microsoft based, but it's still they've added a UI, but I would say that you still have to be pretty comfortable with programming or else it's pretty intimidating. Mind Studio has done a really good job of doing a UI that's not intimidating and giving access to multiple models. So I really like that because it's not the primary source model. It's not like where you're going to find all of the information about how it was created, but they are trying to expand it so that its user interface is really simple. And then you can also connect it in with things that you might already doing, like Zapier and some of the other ones. It has a lot of integrations.
What was the Fahrenheit episode where you list the different agents? So
Episode 5 is where we introduce them, and it's the game of Clue, and it's kind of trying to break it down because all of the characters in the game actually have personalities, and they were all generated by an AI model and by an AI with coding. But then we try to turn it into more practical use. But there's some examples in that episode about how they will be used in the future. There's an example of a completely automated marketing department in that episode, and then you can see as it walks it through like how well it could actually function. There's an example of...
Does that have the one that had the slide from yesterday? You had 2 slides that showed what you would use to create those sections. Those are, that's the art and that's the marketing, but it's not. What I used was called AutoGen, and you can look it up. It's Microsoft based, but I do recommend Mind Studio if you don't feel comfortable with programming, because you will have to know a little bit of programming in Mind Studio, but not much. AutoGen, you definitely need to know a little bit more. The only challenge is, though, if you don't know, you're going to have to ask the AI a lot. Just keep asking it, and it will guide you through it. His question was, what's the podcast? It's that QR code. It takes you to the In Kitchen YouTube, and it's posted on there as a playlist. It's a really interesting field, you guys, and it is coming, and it's going to be everywhere in your lives, but you can build it for yourself, which is what's really cool about it. And if we don't control it, it will control us.
It probably will control us either way, but at least you'll have an idea of why and how.
We'll know who killed us.
I watched the creator talk about it. He has one of the introductory videos. They have a really good YouTube channel, too. That's another reason why I liked it. I forget what he came from. It was like Disney or something. I don't know. He was with one of the big guys. Maybe it was Google. And then he broke out and he built that.
Other questions?
It does have a paid part, but for the most part it's free. You can build all the agents for free and you can interact with them for free. But if you want to embed them or if you want to make them do bigger, more complex things, you have to pay. And I think it was something like $20 a month.
Other questions?
What can you do about putting like fail-safes in place? Like if you had a marketing and it was customer facing and it may just tell a customer, oh yeah, we can get you 10,000 shirts by Friday, where you may not have the capacity to do that.
This is when everything starts to go really bad. Yeah. That's a valid question. And so what we're doing in Fahrenheit right now is building agents based on public data, our vendor data, our own data, or donated data, and we're examining like how they function and trying to make useful tools. The next step will be to follow the data and see when it turns into a vector and it's broken down and it's using it as a knowledge base, where's it going? Who's got access to it? What's happening next? And then to start throwing some really hard use cases at it like that. Like, what if it's completely hallucinating and lying, and what responsibility? And one thing I can say, if you are going to get ahead of this, at least follow along, but if you're going to get ahead of this, is make sure that you're labeling that it's AI generated and also that it can make mistakes. It is much like a human. Sometimes it hallucinates and does say some horrible things. One way you can safeguard yourself is by understanding the different models and using ones that have less tendency towards that, like Claude, for example, right now. But they do change, and there is no guarantee at this point.
And program it to ask the human to intervene over a certain level.
Yeah. When it gets to certain things that it isn't allowed to answer and it needs to use a human. You can put a lot of controls in on it and get it to stop. Yes. And that's one thing you learn if you watch my episode. So when I first started working in Mind Studio, you have to kind of prompt the AI agent to become alive, for lack of a better term. And I prompted it with all this information, and it came alive, and it was like so complex. And I realized I really didn't need to do that. I could be much more simple about it. But through the act of taking things away, I learned how to control it better than having to figure out what to add. Because sometimes like thinking of what it could do that's wrong is kind of hard until it does it. So I had put so many controls on it, and it couldn't function, and then I was slowly taking them away until it started functioning well. That was one way to kind of protect yourself. Overprotect it.
It's kind of interesting, like what information it's drawing from. You know, Alex Spurrier that designed the posters that we have over there, he had used it to try to inspire him on a beer label.
Yeah.
And when it was a dog, you know, on a bicycle, it like did great. When it was an armadillo, it came out like freakishly awful. You know, just didn't have enough to draw from.
Well, Marshall was just suggesting using scientific names for animals, and that was helping in some of those weird cases. I haven't tried that, but that might be an option. It does. It's like, I think of AIs in art and in agents. They're toddlers at this stage. Very, very smart toddlers, and they're learning. And if you follow this, you'll start to see them learning and getting smarter and more integrated. But, you know, toddlers do things wrong all the time.
And they're evil sometimes. Well, that was
Go hang out with a toddler, and they'll be like, okay.
Well, that was a very interesting thing. So we were working on a project for Farm Aid and generating designs. You know, if I said, oh, it's like an apple tree and it's a woodcut look, and, you know, that sounds kind of, you know, innocuous. They were creepy. Like, it came up with creepy stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the only way I could describe it.
And the only way because Rick and I talk about this constantly, and the only way I can kind of understand that is it's based on the internet, and the internet is a dumpster fire, so it kind of makes sense that what it generates is...
No, as a human, you probably filter that stuff out,
Yeah.
and you don't
Yeah.
necessarily program your...
And they're trying to fix things like that, but it's like they don't always know what's going to happen either. So when they make a correction, it overcorrects, and then it starts doing some other weird thing.
It still can't get fingers right?
No. Not. It's gotten better, but no. Fingers are a big giveaway. So this election season, when you're online, look for fingers.
Or lack thereof, right?
Yeah.
Actually, that was like I found out the Oakland A's owner is a jerk, and he's moving to Las Vegas, and they looked like in about an hour designed this stadium, like as though they had spent months at it, but it had all this like anomalies in it, and it clearly was AI generated because the fans in the stands had like 12 fingers, and you know, the foul pole was in the stands, like in the middle
That
of it.
brings up the best point as you're getting into this. The best companies to work with are the transparent ones. So if they're doing AI generated and they're not saying it, and you figure it out, stay away from them.
Other questions? All right, Michelle will hang around for a few minutes afterwards. How about a hand for her? All right, and I want to thank our sponsors, Emerald and Hirsch and Los Angeles Apparel and Stalls. I want to thank the sponsors for the series that we have going here, which is Fruit of the Loom, Stalls, and M&R make this possible, this research. So, all right, thanks for coming.